At dinner, the clinking of silverware was the only sound until my father cleared his throat. His voice sliced through the hush. Your sister is successful and responsible, unlike you. My mother nodded as if it were scripture. She doesn't need help from anyone, she added, her tone light but meant to wound. I kept my eyes on the glass of water in front of me. The rim was chipped, a detail no one else noticed. They never noticed the cracks until they cut. My name is Emily, I'm 27. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Have you ever had family cross your boundaries? Let me know in the comments. I could feel my sister's smile pulling wide, a smug kind of glow that filled the room more than the chandelier above us. The golden child, always dressed in soft creams and pearls, even when her bank account was quietly fed by mine. Perfect, I said finally, setting my fork down with a calm I didn't feel. My $3,500 monthly transfers end today. The silence was sharper than any knife. Her face drained, the smugness collapsing like a sandcastle in high tide. Dad opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Mom's hand froze midair with her glass of wine. My sister's fork clattered against the porcelain, echoing like a warning bell. For once, they didn't look like a family in control. They looked like strangers caught stealing at a market, and I, for the first time, felt the air shift in my favor. The chandelier hummed faintly overhead, its light spilling like interrogation onto the table. My father finally found his voice. Don't be ridiculous, Emily. Families help each other. You can't just cut her off. I tilted my head, tracing the condensation on my chipped water glass. Funny, you just said she doesn't need anyone. My mother's lips twitched. You're twisting our words. Across from me, my sister's hands fluttered like nervous birds, fumbling with her napkin. Emily, you can't be serious. Rent is due next week. She cut herself short, too late. The truth had slipped. The silence afterward was almost sweet. I folded my hands together and let them rest calmly in my lap. So the responsible one needs me to keep a roof over her head? The walls seemed to lean in, listening. The smell of rosemary chicken, once inviting, now hung heavy like smoke. My father tried again. This isn't about money. It's about loyalty, about family. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Family? The word you use when you need me, and discard when you don't. My sister's eyes glassed over, wide and frantic. She looked down at her plate as though salvation might be hidden under mashed potatoes. That chipped glass in front of me caught the light again, cracked, imperfect, but still holding water. I pressed my fingertip to the fracture and thought, maybe the broken things survive because they know how to bear weight. The golden child had panicked, but tonight the stage lights were turning on her. The scrape of a chair cut through the silence. My sister pushed back from the table, her voice pitched high. You don't understand, Emily. I've been under so much pressure. Dad said you wouldn't mind helping, that it was just temporary. My father's glare snapped toward her. Enough. But it was too late. The admission hung between us like smoke no one could wave away. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, my voice low but steady. So this wasn't about her being responsible. It was about covering her tracks. With my money. Mom set her wine glass down too quickly. Red spilled across the white tablecloth, blooming like a wound. Emily, you're being cruel. We just wanted to ease her stress. I stared at the spreading stain. It reminded me of the nights I lay awake, calculating each payment, each quiet sacrifice, while they sang her praises. I wanted to scream, I whispered, half to myself, but silence felt louder. My sister's hand darted across the table, reaching for mine. Please, you know I didn't ask for this. Her fingers hovered above my wrist, trembling. I pulled back, the space between us colder than any rejection. Don't, I said. Don't pretend this is innocence. You benefited every single month. And you let them shame me while you ate with my money. The chandelier flickered once as if agreeing, and in that dim pulse of light, I realized the script had been rewritten. Not by them, by me. My father stood, his shadow stretching long across the tablecloth. "This conversation is over," he declared, the tone that once ended every argument. But this time I didn't shrink. I rose slowly, chair legs dragging against the wood floor like a drawn-out warning. "No, Dad, it's just beginning." The room held its breath. Even the clock on the far wall seemed to pause between ticks. "You raised me to believe loyalty was one-sided," I said, my voice soft but unshakable, "that my worth was measured by what I could give, and when I gave it was never enough." Mom shook her head, panic tightening her features. "Emily, don't dramatize. We've all made sacrifices." "Name one," I challenged, my eyes locked on hers. "One sacrifice you've made for me." Her silence was answer enough. "My sister," whispered then, a cracked confession. "I thought you'd understand. I thought you loved me enough to keep helping." I looked at her, pearls still glinting at her throat, mascara smudging under frightened eyes. She wanted sympathy. She wanted rescue. But the chipped glass on the table caught my eye again, catching light in its fracture. I touched it lightly, tracing the imperfection. "Love," I said, "isn't measured in dollars. And responsibility isn't borrowed like a dress you never return." The wine stain between us had spread wider, a dark river dividing the table. On one side them, on the other me. And for the first time, I didn't mind being alone. The air in the dining room had shifted, heavy as though the walls themselves absorbed every word. My father's knuckles whitened around the back of his chair. "You think cutting her off makes you stronger? It makes you cruel," he said. I let the accusation hang, then replied, "Cruelty is pretending someone is independent while quietly feeding off another's back. That's not love. That's manipulation." My sister shook her head, voice trembling. "I didn't ask them to say that. I didn't ask them to compare us." "Yet you never corrected them," I said. "You wore their praise like armor while I carried the weight." Her silence was worse than denial. Mom reached across the table, her rings catching the light. "Please, Emily, don't make this into a battle. Families survive by compromise." "Families survive by truth," I countered. For a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not regret, but fear. Fear of what the truth would expose. The wine stain had begun to dry, leaving a jagged edge on the cloth. It looked like a map, one line cutting me away from the rest of them. I pressed my palms flat on the table. "This ends tonight. No more transfers. No more silence. No more pretending I don't see the cracks." My sister whispered, almost childlike, "Then what happens to me?" The chandelier trembled slightly, a soft rattle of crystal against crystal, as though the house itself knew the answer. What happens to her was no longer my burden to carry. The night outside pressed against the windows, a dark mirror reflecting us back at ourselves. I caught my own face in the glass, steady, unfamiliar in its calm. My father's voice dropped low, almost a growl. "You'll regret this, Emily. Money isn't everything." I turned to him, my words sharp but even. "You're right. Money isn't everything. But it has been the leash you've kept around my neck. Tonight I cut it." My sister's chair screeched as she leaned forward, desperation leaking into her tone. "Please just give me time. I'll fix it, I swear." Her promises felt like tissue in a storm, flimsy, already falling apart. Mom finally spoke again, voice brittle. "You still wear that perfume. The one I bought you years ago." The question was strange, misplaced, a decoy to steer us away from the truth. I didn't answer. I only smiled faintly, because the silence afterward revealed more than words ever could. The chipped glass, still half full, gleamed in the chandelier's light. Its fracture seemed deeper now, but it held. So did I. You called her successful, I said, voice steady, but you never asked who made that success possible. I did, quietly, and you mocked me while I paid the bill. The table had turned into a stage, and they were cornered under the spotlight. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of their silence. I welcomed it, because silence meant they were finally listening. My sister's breathing quickened, uneven, as though the truth itself had stolen her air. She reached again for my hand, but stopped halfway, fingers curling into her palm. I didn't mean for it to get this far, she whispered. I leaned back, folding my arms. It always gets this far when no one says stop. Dad's jaw worked, but no words came. For once, his authority was empty. The ticking clock on the wall grew louder, filling the space where excuses usually lived. Each second sounded like a verdict. Finally, Mom broke the quiet. If you walk away from this, you walk away from us. The ultimatum lingered, heavy and sharp. I studied the dried wine stain, its edges curling like burned paper. Maybe that's the only way I'll ever walk free. Her lips parted, but nothing followed. The chandelier trembled again, scattering light like shards across the table. My sister's eyes brimmed, glossy with the realization she could no longer play both sides. Emily, please, don't let this destroy us. I searched her face for sincerity and found only fear of losing comfort. Fear of losing me. The chipped glass still stood between us, a fragile witness. I lifted it, turning the fracture toward the light. Broken things endure, I murmured, but they don't forget who dropped them. Their silence swallowed me whole. Yet instead of emptiness, I felt the clean rush of air, as though a door had opened inside my chest. The decision was no longer heavy. It was clear. The night was quiet when I finally stood, the legs of my chair groaning against the floor. My sister's lips moved, but no sound came. My father looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, and my mother clutched her wine glass like it was the only truth left to hold. I'm not angry anymore, I said, surprising even myself. Just done. The chipped glass still glimmered in my hand. I set it gently on the table, right at the edge of the wine stain. The fracture caught the light one last time, not as weakness, but as proof of survival. I'll send over a contract tomorrow, I continued. No more transfers. No more quiet arrangements. If you want support, you'll have to earn it, legally, not emotionally. Dad scoffed, but didn't argue. Mom looked away. My sister bit her lip, her pearls no longer a crown, but a chain. I reached for my coat, draped on the back of the chair. Family isn't blood alone. It's respect. And I won't keep pretending we have either. For a moment, no one moved. Then my sister whispered, Emily, I'm sorry. The words floated across the table, fragile, almost believable. But apologies weren't currency anymore. I turned toward the door, the air colder, but somehow cleaner. Work on yourself, I said softly. Not on my bank account. The chandelier's crystals shivered behind me, scattering light across the room like a quiet applause. And as I stepped outside, the night finally felt mine.